it's Janelle from Enriching Young Minds and Hearts, and I am so excited to welcome you to my first installment of Teacher Tip Tuesdays. It's going to be a weekly series on Tuesday that talks about all of my favorite things I like to do in my classroom to keep my kids motivated, engaged, excited, eager to learn, ready to come to school, and having fun. And one of my favorite things to do is word study, and I like to do it through word sorts. Of course, there's a lot of different programs out there that you can use, and what I'm going to do is just talk about how to even run word study. So it doesn't matter which program you use, which reading series you use, you have lots of tips and ideas on how just to even run it and make it a successful time in your classroom. One of the reasons why it's my favorite thing to do is because it doesn't require any extra work. All you have to do is set it up and you are ready to go day after day, year after year. You can use it with the upper grade students. You can use it with primary students. You can differentiate between all of your students and their ability levels. And of course, you don't even have to do it yourself. You can train paraprofessionals, parent helpers, volunteers from the high school, anybody you want to help run these groups with your kids. It keeps them motivated, engaged, excited, something fun, it's hands-on, it's interactive, and I love it, and I know all of my students do as well. So here are a couple of word study kits that I had set up. If you'd like to see how to set them up, go ahead and head to Teachers Pay Teachers, Enriching Young Minds and Hearts, and you will see a free video there on how to set them up. All right, so I went ahead and turned off the light just because I noticed there was a little bit of a glare and I wanted you to be able to see everything that was up here. So I turned off the main light and just have a backlight on so you guys can see it a little better. So here again is short A, that's the word family that we would be working on. And I would call my students over a couple at a time. And even though with my reading program I am doing a certain pattern that all of the students are doing, I can still do it by ability level. Of course, my reading groups are designed that way. So of course, when I call my students over, I would call students from the same group. So they are still working with the students at their ability. So if they're a little bit slower, they're working with other students that are at their pace. If they're quick, they're working with students at that pace as well. I usually call 2 to 3 at a time. You of course could do 1 student at a time, especially if you have a parent helper or a paraprofessional working with you. If not, I wouldn't do more than 4. Their attention span seems to go away when there's more than 4 because they have to wait a little bit of time before they get their turn. So I would definitely say 2 to 3 is best and no more than 4. So what I would do is I would take them out and I would call the students that I wanted to work with. And as an incentive, I let the kids have a special job when they get there. So walking nicely, not running, sitting quietly, that sort of thing. And as they're walking over, I will take out the header cards and put those to the side. And then I flip these over. And of course I choose my student and they get to flip them all over and mix them up. They love this, it's amazing. I would put them in a pile upside down, ready to go. And then I would go over the header cards with the rest of my students. Now, of course, according to the different groups would kind of tell you what you're going to talk about with the students. So my approaching students that are strugglers, I might tell them and remind them what we're working on and what's in each picture and what each category has. Now my on-level students or my beyond level students, if I choose to call them, I of course would let them tell me what it is. What are we going over this week? What is our spelling pattern? What does this picture represent in this picture? So on and so forth. So after I go over the header cards and am very explicit on what each picture represent and what goes in each column, the students flip the cards over one by one, read it and decide where it goes. So this is decoding practice and it's also higher level thinking because they're having to sort it based on the pattern. So they might flip this over and if they want to sound it out phonetically, great. If they know it automatically, even better. So they might say k, an, can, and then they have to figure out, is it part of the at family, the an family, or the ap family? So of course they would put it there. And for kinesthetic learning, I like to have them touch it and repeat. So they would say man, can. So not only is that kinesthetic learning, but it also helps them with fluency because the more they say a word, the more they have it memorized. So then they would pass the cards to the next person, they would flip it over, and they of course would sound it out or read it automatically and figure out where it goes. And again, cap, tap, and they keep going. And so the next person would say fan and put it here and go man, can, fan. Now of course if they say man, k, and can, and they start sounding out again, just have them keep repeating, man can fan. You can even model it for them and they would go, man can fan. So just really emphasizing after they've sounded out that automatic, the fluency. So then you keep going, and of course if a student places it in the wrong column, so let's say they say man, but they put it over here, and they say cap, tap, man, a lot of times they will realize their mistake and go ahead and fix it. And if they don't, that's when you might want to ask some questions. And of course the other students sometimes tell them, you try to encourage them not to do that, but they might say that doesn't go there, and of course that's okay too. They kind of work together and help each other. But you might say, well, why did you place that there? And then of course they have to think about it. They think about, does it go there? Does it go somewhere else? And then they have to really dive deep to figure out, where does that go? And of course, once they figure it out, now in order for the kids to not always think they're wrong when I ask them a question, sometimes when they do place it in the correct area, and they say cap, tap, cap, and I say, well, why do you place that there? Then they have to again dive deep to think, oh, well, why did I place it there? And then they have to think, does it fit or does it not fit? So again, just questioning the students whether they are correct or incorrect kind of helps with that. So then what you do is you continue going, and just for time's sake, just because it can take a long time depending on the group you're in, there's 6 words for each column, and sometimes that gets a little tedious. So what I like to have them do is once there's 4 in a row, go ahead and just stack it on top, just for time's sake. That way you don't have to go through all 18 words. Okay, so then maybe just flip over until there is 4 in each row, because you do obviously want them to practice all the patterns. So then they would just keep going. Of course, all the ats are going to be at the bottom, aren't they? So here we go, and that happens, and that is okay. Get lots of extra practice. And then once they are completely done, speed this up there. As a culminating activity at the very end, I like to do something called fast pencil, or you could call it fast finger. And what you do is to really encourage that automaticity and fluency. You do something like this, where you point and they read as fast as they can. Okay, depending on the group, you'll go a lot faster. Some groups you'll go a little bit slower, but it's still called fast finger. So then you would just point to a word until they can read it quickly, and then here, and then here, and here, and just kind of go back and forth. And then you are done. Now there's lots of different extension activities that you can do, ways that you can incorporate writing and games and memory and that sort of thing. I will be making another video probably next Tuesday on how to extend some of these activities, ways you can include it into centers if you'd like them to work on it independently. So make sure you go ahead and catch that next week. So there it is, word study. Super simple, super easy, something your students love to do, something I love to teach, something you can easily train any parent helpers or professionals to do. It's one of the first things I give out when I have a parent come in and say they want to help. Here you go, work with some students, do some word study. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel on YouTube. It's Enriching Young Minds and Hearts. Follow me on Teachers Pay Teachers. You will find lots of resources. I have different word studies based on ability level. I have word study based on grade level.